Last few months watching YouTube videos on different ways of doing artist talk, and they all gave me anxiety. So what I did is just create. Even till last night, 2 days ago, I made these totes. Took a lot of time, but I was able to make them. I also dyed these pants last night, dyed some shirts for my daughters. Got in trouble because one was brand new and my wife was livid. But that's what I do, I just create. You know, I'm Manuel Matias. I was born in Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. I grew up in the Lower East Side, and that's what Alphabet City is. Alphabet City is the Lower East Side of Manhattan. It starts in Avenue A, B, C, and D. So I grew up on Avenue D, the Lower East Side, and then there's the Hudson River and Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I could see that from my window every day. And it was exciting growing up there. I played the sounds before everyone was coming in, and I didn't realize that those sounds were making my anxiety get higher. And I was like, man, when I was a kid, now I know I was crazy. You know, I was like, we listened to this all day long. Now we wake up to birds, and I'm like, yeah, shut up. But yeah, I grew up in the Lower East Side in the 80s and 90s, a lot of violence. I was sheltered, so I didn't engage in a lot of it. One of my experiences as a kid, my mother and I were walking from church, and it was in an era where they were selling narcotics out in the open. And I remember that. I remember walking by them, and they would respect my mom. And one day during Halloween, this kid on a bike stopped and poured eggnog on me and took off. Never went outside on Halloween since. Even now, I tell my wife, don't open the door. But I always struggled with, Ben, do me a favor, can you pass me those papers behind you? I always struggled with my identity. Yes, please. And I learned something that is called code switching. And I code switch really well. And it's having to be what I needed to be to survive the Lower East Side. The Lower East Side was intense, but it was really artistic, that I could say. It was a lot of graffiti, and I guess back then people hated it, some people still hate it, but I grew to love it. I grew to love art. And but I struggled as an artist too, because I didn't think I was good enough. And even now, sometimes I'm like, man, why am I here, you know? And I'm going to try not to be too overly emotional, because I was told not to use this as therapy. But yeah, because every time I practice, every time I practice, I would end up tearing up and crying sometimes because of the struggle with wanting to remember, but then not wanting to remember too much. But as an artist, I told the story in the video that there was this kid, Ridwan. We became really good friends. And it was him, Jin, Jeffrey, and myself. We were the 4 best friends. The only 3 Asian people in the entire neighborhood. All the way, because I'm on Avenue D and 10th Street, and Chinatown's all the way like a mile and a half away. You're not walking over there. And but Ridwan sat next to me, and he drew a Ninja Turtle. It was the most beautiful Ninja Turtle I've ever seen. I told myself from that moment on that I'm not good enough to be an artist, and never created, unless I was by myself, but never created for other people or for anyone to see it. When I drew, I used to draw on staircases by myself. I wanted to be a graffiti writer, but I was scared about going to prison. And like in that era, graffiti was a really violent sport, for lack of a better way of explaining it, because people used to get attacked for writing on other people's drawings. So from that moment, I was like, you know, I'm not an artist. Let me try something else. So I started dabbling in hip hop, in rap. I wanted to be an actor, but then I felt like I wasn't good enough. Didn't chase that career. Wanted to play basketball. Wasn't good at basketball. Stopped that. Wanted to play baseball, but I seen one kid lost a tooth, so I didn't even try. You know what I mean? And then this morning, my daughter, my 9-year-old, wakes up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and wants to draw. I said, Dad, can you Google something for me? I'm like, what? She said this, a Ninja Turtle. And it was weird. You know, it was a weird experience for me because like I'm trying to tell her what just happened and she doesn't really understand it. But I'm like, man, how life, everything just comes back to the beginning, right? Like for today, it was weird. Like I don't know how to explain it, but this is what happened today. And that's when I realized like I'm in the right place. So I am good enough, you know, to be here. But I've been practicing kind of sitting in the memory is what this is all about. I create things that I've experienced, nostalgic pieces, and then I create things that I want to remember. So La Casita in the back is a memory right now that is really important to me and my children because of the cultural power that it's giving my daughters as Latinas. You know, they don't really speak Spanish, but they're learning Spanish. So that I want to remember, that's that piece right there. I want to remember that. Then there's, like, this is an old memory. My grandma, she was really mean. She was. I'm glad you guys are laughing because it was traumatic. So, but, so she was really mean, but the house was always clean, right? But then I'm starting to sit in my memories with her because she did teach me a lot. She taught me how to gamble. She taught me how to play cards, you know, but I enjoyed those times. The sofa was super clean because it was covered in plastic. My house, the sofa was covered in plastic. We had the Last Supper, which was ironic because my mother hated cooking. So we never had supper. But thank God for school lunches because across the street. But my goal with this is to not to forget and to allow other people to sit in their old memories. Recently, we just had a show at the Everson, and a friend of mine was there, and this lady passes by, and she sees there's that spray can behind the beautiful Teresa. It's a spray for me, and there's a telephone in it. And she passed by and she goes, man, I remember telephones. And I remember we used to sit in the telephone booth and lock the door. And when it was crazy outside, you know, people used to, make believe I was talking on the phone. And I remember sleeping in it because I was homeless, and she left. And then he goes, did she say she was homeless? And I was like, yeah, she did. And I didn't get a chance to interact with her. And I would love to have gotten more into those memories, and then so we could remember together. And that's why even one of the security guards told me he remembers his friends yelling when they were younger, and his parents used to get upset because I told him when I was younger, my best friend lived on the 12th floor, and I used to be like, yo, Sean, and we used to talk. And even in the street, we never wasted any time. If I saw him, we would yell the entire conversation back and forth. What up? How you doing? And then have the conversation when we got up to each other, give him five. And then, so we didn't waste any time. You know, New York City, everything's super fast. So that's the memories. I'm trying to sit in the memories, and this is where, I'm gonna stop so to let you guys ask questions. But like, my dad just passed, right? And this is, there was a lot of things. He wasn't an abusive dad, but he wasn't there. And in that time period, them just going to work and supporting was their responsibility. But he wasn't like we are now. Like, are you okay, babe? I let my daughter, I talk to them about everything. When he passed, there weren't too many memories. But I wanted to remember. So I wanted some of his items, but something happened with the family and things went south and everything got removed. They didn't save anything for me. And so it hurt. And I'm like, oh, so what can I do now? And there's like instruments that remind me of him that I am going to work on another show with at La Casita, that I'm going to try to turn these instruments into something that reminds me of him. And that's why a lot of these pieces, well, all of them are important to me, but something like that. This piece It's a rubber ducky. Those are my daughter's drawings. We were just having a conversation because my wife, she'll take the pieces of paper and she'll put them in the recycle bin, and I'll take them out, right? Because I just don't want to forget anything. I'm having like a hard time with it. So I start making them smaller and putting them on art instead of having all these crazy. I mean, I still have them, but they're stashed. But that's it, and it's I think we focus a lot of like the negative memories we have, and I would love for people to engage in their good memories and like let's sit in those memories, and that's it. I made it so far without crying, which didn't happen when I was practicing. The floor is now open. So.
Manny, can you talk a little bit in general about the contemporary practice of miniature making within art? It's really having a great explosion right now, and it feeds into social media, and it was something that was a little bit invisible to me. There is kind of a history within ceramics of people doing similar things, but for those of us who are not intimately familiar with like the broader community of like miniature makers, can you talk a little bit about that community?
Okay, I'm sitting over here. So, yay! So, I didn't even know that there was a whole subgenre. So what happened was I saw a garbage can on the internet right before COVID, and I wanted it. It was a miniature garbage can, and I've always been infatuated with miniature stuff. And I went to his website, and it was like $3,000. I ain't paying $3,000. So I was like, you know what? Let me try to make it. I was like, you can sit, baby. You can sit. So I made the garbage can, and thank you. That's them. This is what you can sit. So I made the garbage can, and I fell in love with it. And then I started making doors, but yet I didn't know that there was a huge world. Like there's a huge diorama, miniature world out there where people are making beautiful creations. And I'd been blessed to be a part of it, but I didn't know it existed until people started reaching out. One is because I remember the first time I saw anything miniature, there was this place called Tower Records, and we used to cut school. See, this is what I'm saying. So if we had an opportunity, what memories do you have from Tower Records? That's, probably, I had time after the show. Same here, thank you. You're not alone, we all do that. So we went to Tower Records, we used to cut school. No. And we used to go in, and the kids used to go, and they had sticky fingers, right? So all my friends used to go and scour Tower Records to try to get some things and take them home. But in Tower Records, there was this huge island with video cameras, and back in the days, the video cameras was like this big, with the cassettes. And you were able to use the camera to zoom in to this miniature diorama of a train set. And I was always there just staring at her and going from camera to camera and seeing it. And I thought it was beautiful, and just seeing how people could make something so large, so small, and it just looked amazing. And I hope I answered correctly. Sorry, I'm trying. So that's it. That's there's a whole, and then there's like magazines. They have conventions, miniature conventions, that I would love to be a part of one day. But
are there like rules that people have? Like in ceramics, there are all these rules, like where if you aren't doing it with the right glaze or the right way, like people will look down.
I hope there aren't any rules. If there are, I broke a lot of them. No, yeah, because you have. So when it comes to the way I create, even she does it all the time. If she has trash, she'll hand it to me and say, hey, I think you could make this with that, right? And sometimes I think she uses it so she doesn't actually throw things away. But it's like if I see something that may remind me of something in real life, I'll use it. And so with me, there aren't any rules, I guess. You know, I'll sculpt something out of clay or use something. This is a wooden box. You know, for me, I don't think, at least in my way of creating, there aren't any rules. I mean, these are dead bees that I used, that we found, that I incorporated in this piece that we found on vacation. Nobody ever told me to do it or not to do it. So I think I just break them no matter what. Thank you. Yes?
Are your scenes, are any of them specifically from a picture or an exact place, or is it more about the feeling?
Well, this is from an actual place. This is in the Lower East Side in Little Italy. Little Italy and Chinatown meet. So I believe this building is in between both of them. It's a photo. There's a wife and husband that I follow that takes photos of buildings because they're changing at such a rapid pace. You know, so this picture was from that book. I purchased a book and I saw that photo. And people have reached out and said that that building doesn't even look like that anymore. So they cleaned everything up. None of the graffiti's on the door. Everything's removed except for the lettering. But it's completely, I guess, different because it's clean. But yeah, a lot of these are, this is from memory. I saw this in a picture. These are my imagination, what I wish my bedroom would have looked like. A lot of these, it all starts with what I want to see. You know, I wanted to see somebody operating on a cheese doodle in a bag, and that's what happens. You know, it's my struggle with sweets and junk food. So I'm a hypocrite, don't get me wrong, because I'm still eating them. But yeah, that's, a lot of them are from memory, and it varies. Thank you, Rachel. Yes?
When we were kids, we had the option of writing your book report or doing a diorama in a
Yeah.
shoebox. Did you do them as a kid?
No.
Oh, I'm so jealous that you can make a living at it. I would have done that from age 8.
Right? You're right? No. We had the options of either writing book reports or not, and I chose never. I chose not to write them. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I didn't do well at all. Yes.
Like, what are these things mainly made out of?
That is a good question. All these things are made out of, like the bottom of the bases, I make out of foam. This is insulation for your walls that I paint and make them look real. But it's a whole bunch. It's anything I find, really. Plastic, wood, paper, anything I find. If I can use it, I use it.
You must have gone on a journey.
Yes.
And all that stuff.
Yes. It's an adventure all the time. My daughters help me though too. Thank you. You have a question? Okay. Yes.
So I love hearing the stories. What is the most personal piece that you have here? And tell us the story behind it.
So.
I don't mean to give you a stumper.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry.
No, for me, it would be between Abuelita's house and La Casita. Abuelita's house, because there's a lot of trauma attached to this piece. There's a lot of trauma attached to a few of these pieces because the struggle between forgetting, you know, especially with you, like you can ask my wife. He had an exhibition here. It was the first one, by the way. Great exhibition.
You're very, very kind.
And that got me to kind of focus on my dad and like, man, like I wish I had that experience, your relationship with your father, almost envious of, you know, because I didn't have one. So that one, because I had a horrible relationship with my grandmother. But then when I started to dig deeper into memories, like I did love her house. It felt clean. You know, it felt safe. You know, like I knew she wasn't the nicest, but she never hurt me either. So that one and La Casita, because before we found that program, I struggled with my daughter's learning my culture and my culture not dying with me, right? But I didn't know how to do it, right? Because I'm not cool enough to, hey, let's learn Spanish. I don't want to, and I'm like, check Tuesday. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. So it was difficult for me to navigate because I don't have the environment here that I grew up in. Where I grew up, I had to be like super Puerto Rican. Like, again, I code switch and I got picked on a lot because I got picked on by my cousins because I didn't speak Spanish well enough. So I became like the epitome of what Puerto Rican would be. Bandanas, always walking around, and I code switched all the time and I spoke Spanish and I yelled, but that's not here. And that's not I did it to survive again. But at the house, at La Casita, they start to learn Spanish in a way that is beautiful and they receive it well. So for me, that is a memory that I want to hold on to. It's right behind that lovely lady in all black. So those two pieces, right? Because of I think my culture in the past and my culture in the future, and I don't show it a lot, but it's still so a part of who I am, so.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's
Thank
great.
you, and I love your mustache. I love your mustache.
Do what I can.
And I didn't cry, so.
You're golden.
Yes.
Do you feel a sense of feeling when you make something like your grandma's house? Or like, is there a memory that comes up that you think of, but then you automatically push it back down so you want to make it into art, so you want to look at it?
Well, so even practicing for this talk was hard because I was like regurgitating trauma by myself and I wasn't healing with anybody. I was like by myself crying because of a lot of things. But then I remember like there are good memories. It's just the bad memories were overshadowing the good memories because we took a trip to Puerto Rico and my grandmother was next to me and she taught me how to play cards. It was her and that helped me become kind of cool and show people card tricks. And I used to be able to do 3-card Monte and she taught me some foul language and it's like, and I remember she used to make desserts in her house. And I remember she used to have these 2 birds that she adored. She treated them much better than any human I've ever seen her encounter. But like, so there is a battle between, like even this one, like I want to go back to New York City, but it's hard, like even listening to it, it's a battle, but a lot of these pieces, like this one, I feel bad when I make it because I was making it, but where do you think the cheese doodles that were in it went? I ate them, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
So Manny, one of the things that I love most about this exhibition is, you seized the opportunity, to show in a museum, and you created work that is all about art. And there are lots of little references to the art world in here. I see a Van Gogh, a Magritte, sort of on and on. Can you, for the audience, pick out some of the little references that you've made to the art world in your miniature?
Oh yeah. So there's a movement, the Stop the Oil movement, that they keep like vandalizing art, and like even they just did something, Stonehenge. So they vandalized Van Gogh's sunflowers, and I went down a huge rabbit hole with learning about Van Gogh. I didn't know a lot of things before I went down that rabbit hole. And so they vandalized throwing soup. So I put Campbell's soup, Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup, as if he was vandalizing. Because it's something I wanted to see. That's, Magritte, I apologize, Magritte, because I've gotten reprimanded 1,000 times. And the apple, but I'm from New York City. So I was like, oh, how about if somebody vandalized the Magritte painting with an actual apple? Basquiat's one of my favorite artists. And I didn't know about Norman Rockwell until recently. And I was like, oh, snap, that looks like the Basquiat dinosaur. How about if somebody drew and then Basquiat I have references of Basquiat through here. And, Vincent Vandal instead of Van Gogh, so that's a graffiti writer, and that's his room, and so those are my odes to these artists that I adore.
Get Michelangelo?
Oh, Michelangelo with the guy from, I know you guys probably have seen that eye around. I don't know him personally, so don't ask me questions. So that's him, and these are, what if we would vandalize that? And I know to many people it's like, oh my God, why would you do that? But it's beautiful to me, and that's why I created it, because I wanted to see it. I saw it, I was walking by, I was like, oh, what if that had graffiti on it? I was like, let me buy it, and then, I buy random stuff.
And I'll put in a quick plug too, in the exhibition Off the Rack on the top floor, you can see some real Basquiat and real Warhol.
Oh, and downstairs some beautiful pieces too. Yeah, that Basquiat, we did an interview in front of it. I love it.
It all comes together, thank you.
It does, thank you, thank you. Yes,
What is your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Mikey. Mikey. Yes.
I have a question about Abuelita's house again. Can you explain because I think I know it and maybe other people do, but just to put it down sharply, what happens in a Hispanic grandmother's house when you open that cookie box? What is the expectation versus the reality of that experience?
So, Abuelita's house, this tin used to hold sewing materials, scissors. So there's a miniature tin in here with sewing materials. She never had cookies, which was depressing. It was depressing. But it's funny because she also had saints and a whole bunch of religious items, but she wasn't the most religious person I've ever met. And then the sofas are plastic. I don't know if anyone's ever lived with someone that had plastic covered sofa. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible. And then if my mother heard you sit too hard, you could hear the psh. She's like, get up! Get up! Levántate! The good thing is that when we spilled things, it never got it dirty. But yeah, that's what that means. Now I do it as well. I have like 12 of those around the house. But now they have a whole bunch of art stuff in them. Yes?
Are there any other disciplines that kind of influence your work, whether it be music or writing or just any other practice?
I like writing. It's funny. All right, I'm going to tell you something. So I'm from the Lower East Side, right? And I didn't want to do art, but I wanted to be a rapper. So as a joke, I was like, oh, I'm going to rap, right, here. So this is old, though. This is over 20 years old. So it goes, that's my wife's over there, I love you. So I'm from the Lower East Side, my street in the 6th borough. In order to survive, the streets must be thorough. Concrete gets beautified with rest in peace murals, and it's $1.95 for a turkey and cheese hero with a free tropical fantasy and your seeds zero. So, right, so because, so I do. I love music, and the thing is, the Lower East Side, there's 5 boroughs. And we consider ourselves the 6th borough, right? And tropical fantasy is a drink that they used to give out for free every time you bought a sandwich. They were like this big, soda. But in the rumor mill was that they would kill your, I don't know how to say it. You weren't able to have children because of it, right? Because of whatever. But we all found out that wasn't true. I had friends having triplets, So, but yeah, so I do love music. I love writing. I love poetry. So basically, I've tried almost, because I wanted When I was younger, I wanted to be all elements of hip hop. So I did breakdance, I did rapping, I did graffiti, I did DJing, but I wasn't really good at any of them. And then I found doing miniatures. I'm like, man, I enjoy this a lot. And after a while, it was no longer for other people. The reason why you see all these is because I created them for myself. I've just been blessed enough that other people like to see them as well. So thank you for your question. I hope that answered it. That was cool. You have another question? Go ahead.
How did you find all of that stuff?
You know, that's a good question. I told my daughters, I said, one person's trash is another person's treasure. So I recycle a lot. I see something, just start picking up, looking at something. If you see a box, it may look like a mini house. So I just recycle. We recycle, right, Amaya? Yeah. Anything else? I don't know. Oh my goodness, it's only 12:30. Back to rapping. No. Oh, real quick before I forget, there's a bag behind them with a QR code. If you guys scan it before this is over, I hid 3 pieces in the Everson. So if you follow me on Instagram, when this talk is over, I'm going to post the video of where I put them. So you guys can go, and there's going to be 3 pieces.
Somewhere in the building.
Somewhere in the building. Somewhere in the building. I'm not going to tell you where. You have to follow me on Instagram.
So what happens if you find them?
You keep them. Yeah, you don't have to give them back. You can do whatever you want. Start your own show. No, any more questions? Because then,
So I want to add that we have some drinks and some snacks. You can hang out and talk to Manny, ask questions about the show, have some jarritos and
Oh yeah, there's food over there.
Pineapple pastries. So any other notes of follow-up or housekeeping that you want to give to Manuel?
No, not that I know of. My goal was not to cry. That was like I wanted to get my message across, but doing this on my own, there was to be completely honest, a lot of crying. And I was like, don't do that over there, so, but thank you guys for coming. It means a lot. I made it without throwing up, which was a big deal. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
I love you. Oh, before I forget, and then I'll let you go. You can clap again after I'm done. But no. So they play a huge role in a lot of my art, before I forget. But because I do a lot of graffiti, it doesn't affect the art, but give it more character. So they drew on this, they painted on this. This piece has all the 5-year-old, my 9-year-old drew on that, Amaya and Zaria. That piece, there's pieces over there that have them on. Behind that casita, they did a mural on the wall. It's both my daughters and their best friend. So there's pieces, because I do a lot of graffiti street art style, they could be a part of it without me having a nervous breakdown. Because when she was 5, I painted this Homer Simpson with donuts that took me months. And then she just painted over it, and I let it happen. So I had to change what art I use. No, that's it. Now we can clap again.